Hi, and welcome to my kitchen and Meals with Magdalene, episode 1. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, today I'm not going to cook for you and show you how to do some meals. I'm going to talk to you about meal planning and how to shop for the week so you can successfully create a week full of healthy meals without actually planning too far ahead. I grew up in Poland, and in Poland, when we were little, my grandparents would get all the basic ingredients for the week, but every morning my grandma would go to the fresh food market or the farmer's market and pick out whatever looked best that day, whatever looked freshest. And I think that's what I picked up from her. So I used to love cooking with my grandma, and I remember she would be like, "Oh, Maja," she would call me Maja. "Look how beautiful these mushrooms were at the market today. We're gonna have to make some mushroom soup." And so she really came up with ideas right then and there. So when I go to the grocery store, I try to do the same thing. I don't necessarily have my 5 dinners planned for the week. I mean, that's just like a little too much. So I know I have some basic ingredients that I'm gonna buy and I'm gonna put in my shopping cart every time I go, because no matter what my mindset is that day, I know that I can use these various ingredients in so many different ways. So today's video is really more about getting you prepared for future success when you go to the grocery store, so you don't overthink it, you don't overdo it, you just go and you're like, yeah, this is what I need. So let's get going. All right, so in my pantry, something that I always pick up and put in my pantry, I'm gonna start with onions. I love me some good onions, and one of my favorite onions to cook with is a sweet onion. I can put them in almost any meal. I can saute them with anything. Just a delicious flavor. It's very mild, so it doesn't overpower anything else that you want to put in. Shallot, slightly different. So a shallot is going to be a little bit more stringent, and it's going to add a little bit more of a peppery flavor, if you will, to your meals, but I do like that. Especially sometimes I actually mix these two up and put them together depending on my mood. Red onion. Now, I'm not a huge fan of red onion raw. I know that they're really popular in salads, but I actually buy red onions and I pickle them, and then I use the pickled onion, and it takes like 20 minutes to pickle these onions. I use them as a garnish in salads. I put them on top of tacos, on top of pretty much any meal to just add a little bit of freshness. And then garlic. In the meals you're going to see me prepping in the future videos, I use garlic almost every time. I think garlic is awesome. It's healthy, and it just adds a little kick to every meal that you make. Okay, moving on from the pantry. Couple different produce that I like to buy that I know I can always come up with something on a whim. I'm going to start with my favorite because it's so versatile. I love cauliflower. I think cauliflower is super healthy, easy to bake or cook or saute with. One of the things that I do a lot is I will actually put cauliflower in an air fryer, and we have a Philips air fryer that I absolutely love. But if you just toss this with some olive oil and some spices, put it in an air fryer, voila, it's awesome. It stays crunchy, it's a little bit softer on the inside. My son really loves when I just cut this up into little pieces, toss it with some pesto, whether it's homemade or store-bought, no shame in that. Put it in the air fryer, awesome side dish. The kid will eat a whole bowl of it. Sticking with the family, I also love broccoli. Now, I don't love to air fry broccoli because I think it tends to get a little bit too crispy, but you can steam broccoli, you can fry, or not, well, not fry, but you can saute broccoli, you can put it in the oven and roast it. That's one of my favorite ways to go about it. Then just put some Parmesan cheese over it. Oh, it's so good. Also pepper. Now, I love peppers. My husband loves peppers. My son doesn't love peppers, but peppers are, depending on how you slice them, can easily be pulled out or omitted completely from a recipe. I think peppers, unless you're doing like a fajita, are a nice accessory. But then there's times when a pepper can actually be a meal of its own, like a stuffed pepper. Okay. something that not all my friends love, and I know this is kind of like that, you're either with them or without the, or they're your friends or your enemies. I love mushrooms, and I definitely have friends who love the mushrooms, and I have friends who don't. So I don't always cook with mushrooms. I would if I could, depending on who I'm having over for dinner. But I think mushrooms are a great substitute for meat if you don't want to work with meat. So like you can actually chop them up really finely and use them instead of ground meat in a taco. I know I mentioned tacos before. They're awesome if you want to make like a flatbread, sauteed mushroom and onion and like Gruyere cheese appetizer. So good. I can put them in anything, and I would if I could, but I know they're not everybody's favorite. So if I am going to cook with them, and I know that I have friends coming over that don't like them, but I really want to put them in a certain recipe, I cut them big enough so then they can easily be pulled out, kind of like with the pepper. Something else. I love tomatoes. I think tomatoes are one of the things that I use almost every day because I love making salads for lunch. So I do cucumbers and tomatoes are kind of a funny thing because tomatoes, we grow them in the summer. I live in Chicago, so we in our garden we'll grow tomatoes and basil, and they'll be really good in the summer. But these Mighty Vine tomatoes, because they're grown so close to Chicago, they're good year round, and they taste like they're just so sweet and delicious. I love to put them in a caprese salad or in any salad for that matter. And this actually brings me to an interesting thing for you guys to consider, because depending on where you live or depending on the season, there's going to be certain fruits and vegetables that are available and they're seasonal. So I'm thinking in the fall, you might get like a really good spaghetti squash that you can make pad thai with or something like that. And you're not going to find that in May necessarily, or you might not want to, because in May you want to eat a little bit more light. So those are things that are going to be variants. But what I'm showing you today is like the things that are like year round, totally doable. One last guy, spinach. Spinach or arugula really, but spinach I think is so versatile. You can have it with breakfast. If you're making an omelet, you can make a salad out of it. I actually love tossing it with some olive oil and mushrooms. I know, I love me the mushrooms. And just making like a spinach and mushroom saute as a side dish. You can stuff a chicken breast with some sauteed spinach. My husband loves putting them in his smoothies in the morning. Spinach is just great. It's easy. It's super healthy, filled with iron, especially if you're one that doesn't eat a lot of meat. That's great. I'm not going to touch on meat or seafood or anything like that today. We are a family that eats a lot of seafood, so you'll definitely see some seafood recipes from me. But I'll also touch on other things like chicken and on red meat and things like that. So even tofu, I'll even touch up on tofu and eggs, because eggs are a good source of protein. So you'll be getting all of those in future videos. But I have a couple more things that I want to talk to you about that you're not necessarily going to buy every time you go to the store, but you should have. One of my favorites is a good balsamic vinegar, an aged balsamic vinegar. And I like the vinegar that's a little slower pouring. That just has that concentrated flavor. I can drizzle that on anything and it looks beautiful on a plate. I actually just use balsamic vinegar on my salads. I don't even put olive oil in there because I think the flavor is already so intense. And this, by the way, I should mention this. So this is Saba, and this I get at Italy. It is fantastic. It is like one of the sweetest yet still deliciously acidic balsamics that I've ever had, and I'm addicted. And every time I go, I buy 2 bottles, because if I run out of one, there's trouble. Olive oil. Now, most people buy extra virgin olive oil, and I'm totally down with that. I also like regular olive oils because they do tend to bring a little bit more flavor. What I love about California Olive Oil Ranch, which is one of my favorite everyday olive oils to use, is that they have like a bold flavor, extra virgin olive oil, and a mild. So the bold will give you a little bit more of a peppery taste, and I really kind of like to bring that out into my food when I can, especially if my food is going to be relatively mild. So those are things I think everybody should have in their kitchen. Obviously salt, pepper, other spices, fresh herbs. I do like some fresh herbs, and again, it depends on the season, but I think something like a rosemary, it's middle of winter right now, and my rosemary outside is still thriving. So I love using rosemary, super versatile. And then finally, if I'm gonna be cooking, ladies and gentlemen, who doesn't like to cook with a nice glass of wine? I'm actually having one right now. Cheers, na zdrowie. So this is one of our favorite brands. It's called Kunde. It is from Sonoma Valley, and we've been fortunate enough to visit twice, and we fell in love with this wine, and we order cases to come and ship to our house. It never disappoints. Their cabs are fantastic. So I think that's gonna bring this episode to an end, and I look forward to seeing you guys very soon when we actually get dirty. Not really, we get dirty with our clean hands as we start cooking some low prep, super healthy meals. Thanks so much.